Welcome into another edition of The Session with Londa and David. My name is David Austin.
I'm Londa Sherwood Austin. Welcome back.
I'm super excited about this week's show, Londa.
Oh, I bet you are.
We've had a lot of things happen in the country in which we live this week. There's been a presidential election. Mm-hmm. There is a new president-elect. Mm-hmm. The Fed has lowered the Fed fund rate by another 0.25%. And in this episode of The Session with Londa and David, we're going to break it all down.
Yep.
This is going to be a good show, but it's not going to be controversial. We're not at all. We're not taking any political stances here.
No, what we like to focus on is what does that mean for you?
Right.
Yeah, so blah-da-da-da, all this happened, and what's that mean? What can we expect to see in the market, the retail market, the real estate market? How is that going to affect our daily lives? And please, for the love of God, can somebody lower the price of groceries?
So there you go. The Session with Londa and David is a business podcast that focuses on the three things we're most interested in, Londa. What are they?
Well, I just mentioned a couple: retail sales, restaurants, and real estate. And we're focusing less and less on restaurants because, frankly, I'm just disappointed in them.
You know what? I don't disagree with you. You know, some changes have happened in this economy that we're in that have made going out to eat a lot less fun. And here's what I mean by that. You know, for the price of an out meal 4 years ago, you can make a meal at home. And that's, to me, outrageous.
That's always been the case, right?
No, it's always been cheaper to make food at home. Now, it costs at home what going out to eat 4 years ago cost.
Right, but it's more expensive to go out to eat today.
Absolutely.
The differential has always been the same.
Oh, I got you.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's always been. It's just like I haven't seen. And if you correct me if I'm wrong, if you know of a restaurant, you own a restaurant where you think what I'm about to say is not true, please reach out because I will definitely come and try. Pay for my own meal. I'm not looking for any favors.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I'll take them, but I'm not looking for them. And I'll check it out. But from what I can tell, the price of meals at a restaurant has gone up dramatically.
Sure.
The quality of the meal has gone down dramatically. The service has gone down dramatically. And that's just my experience. And so, you know, it's nice at our house.
Well, yeah.
You know
and
what
the
I mean?
Steak is always cooked exactly the way I like it at our
There you
house.
go.
You know what I mean?
You're welcome.
So, yeah, it's harder and harder and harder to do the restaurant review that nobody asked for.
And I don't like fast food really, but the only way that I feel like I'm kind of getting my money's worth is except I don't really eat a lot of fast food, but every once in a while, is those $5 deals that a couple of the fast food chains have. Sure. And you can like pick this and pick that and it's $5 and you're in and you're out and I'm good. And I'm like, well, that's what I'm doing because, you know.
I don't really like fast food very much. I grew up in a fast food house where we had fast food restaurants, and my brother and I both at one time worked at McDonald's together, and I've been around fast food my whole life. I'm not a big fan of fast food just because I like to be waited on. In fact, somebody was talking to me the other day, my friend Bob, who I'm in a couple music ensembles with. He's a regular listener to the podcast. He said to me the other day, there's this restaurant that I want you guys to do the restaurant review nobody asked for at, except I don't think you'll like it. And I said, well, tell me about that, Bob. And he says, oh, well, I know how you like to be waited on. In this place, you have to order at the counter.
Yeah.
And
I will say this is one of the places that I go for lunch sometimes when I'm going to pay for out food.
And let me tell you this restaurant, we can name it. Chapala, is it Chapala Express? Is that what it is?
Maybe.
It's on the corner of Columbia Center Boulevard and Clearwater.
In Kennewick, Washington.
Yes. This restaurant is very good. It replaced Chico's Tacos. Do you remember Chico's Tacos? I used to love it. Their big thing was they had a chicken burrito that was the size of a small child's torso.
Okay.
And you'd go in there and they had a salsa bar.
But we're not talking about them.
No. I want to set the stage.
Oh.
And the restaurant looked exactly like the new restaurant that took over the place looks. The difference is they're not doing it like it's a fast food product. It is order at the counter, but there is also table service. And what I mean by that is once you order, you sit down. They come to you. They ask you if you want.
They bring you chips and salsa.
Absolutely.
And they bring you your meal.
And they refill your drinks, and they do all the things that a full-service restaurant does. You just order at the counter. And the reason that's good is because it's a little quicker. If you're in there for lunch, ordering at the counter moves you to your table quicker.
Yeah.
And you
so
get your food
I love
faster.
them. I like it. Their food is good. The staff is fantastic. So I'm correcting myself from my earlier comment, I guess. That is one place I can think of where it's really good service. It's really good food. I get sick every time I eat there, but that is because of my allergies.
Right. Yeah,
it's not
it's not
them.
some foodborne illness.
It's not
correct.
them. It's me. It's not you. It's me.
I love
Anyway.
that place. And when we went in there, one of the owners said, "Is this your first time in?" And of course, it was our first time in since the switch over from Chico's Tacos. And we've been gone a long time. So I don't know if it's sat closed for a while. I don't know the history. I just know that it was my first time in there as this new themed restaurant. And I got to tell you, great food. And the guy, who I can only assume is one of the owners, went out of his way to make us feel welcome. He came to our table several times to check on us. It was like going to a full-service restaurant, and the food was spectacular.
So there you go. That's a restaurant review no one asked for.
And I got to tell you, we do go back because that was a well done deal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We did a few months ago a review of a place called Andy's Coffee Break in Kennewick, Washington. And the guy who runs it, his sister owns it, and he runs it, called me up, and we had a lovely conversation. And as I'm bracing for, the owner of the restaurant to tell me what they didn't like about our review, the truth is they liked everything about our review, but we said the portions are so big, you can split
that we would.
the meal. That
we didn't even say
right.
you could. We said we would.
We would split the meal. And I got to tell you, I thought it was going to be a 5-minute conversation, but I learned the entire history of that business, which has had multiple owners over the years. I learned the etymology from how they named it to why it's Andy's Coffee Break and what it all means. And I got to tell you, if you haven't had breakfast at Andy's Coffee Break in Kennewick, Washington, right there on Columbia Center Boulevard, the old Sherry's building.
Yeah, jump in and give them a try.
You owe it to yourself to try it out because really good people.
They didn't like that we said we would share a meal next time.
They didn't
but the
like that,
reality is we literally, first of all, I'm honest. No one's paying me.
Right.
You know?
That's exactly right.
So I get to be honest. I brought the food home. We ate. It was 4 meals.
Right. And the reason it was 4 meals is because, number one, we eat a little less now than we used to. That's true.
We're elder.
The older we get, and we're trying to have our meals before 3 in the afternoon now. Shrimp cocktail preferably. Anyway.
Oh, my God.
Anyway, we don't need both the torso-sized chicken fried steak and eggs and hash browns and English muffin.
It was just crazy.
And then you got the exact same meal, but in the form of a scramble.
Like a skillet or something. I don't remember.
And so what yours was the exact same thing, except piled on top of each other with cheese on the top layer.
Yeah.
It's enough food for the two of us to eat
4 times.
4 full meals. And we did. And let me tell you something. Once you freeze that country fried steak that they make, it keeps really well.
Well, I know how to bring it back to life, so not everybody can do that. But anyway, all right, let's get off it.
But that's 2 restaurants that we have positive
something
experience.
else.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the reason we
because we're burying the headline here.
Yeah. So there's a new president-elect.
Right.
And I've heard a lot of mixed reviews from our children, but zero mixed reviews from the media. And here's what I mean. The media has quickly changed their tenor about Donald Trump. 2 weeks ago, the sky was falling if he was elected, and we may never have another election ever again. Kamala Harris does
the
her
drama.
Yeah.
The traditional media is like a bunch of middle schoolers.
Right.
The drama around it is
Sure.
ridiculous.
Sure. Kamala Harris does her concession speech and says, whoopsie doodle, we didn't win this time, but we'll get them next time. Well, what do you mean next time? I thought a fascist dictator was taking over and we'd never have an election again.
Okay, so let's move on to what does this mean for us? Because I know the thing is, you think you love talking about politics.
I don't want to talk about the hyperbole.
Hold on. Let me just talk about this though, to give some explanation.
Yes.
You love talking about politics and you love looking at all sides
Absolutely.
of every side and really kind of poking fun at everyone, poking holes in the stories of everyone.
Sure.
Looking at it very moderately, I would say, right? And going, okay, this
I don't have a team.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so I know that you love it. You love it like some people love sports.
I do.
But I've heard nothing else but this for the last 3 months.
Well,
and especially in the last week. So what does it mean? What does it mean for us?
Well,
will the price of groceries go down?
Yes. And here's what it means. Here's
Why?
what it means for your retirement account right now.
Yeah.
The stock market loves certainty. Uncertainty, no bueno. We don't like it. Nobody wants to throw money after stocks if there's uncertainty.
And the day after the election, the stock market started climbing.
Its highest one-day climb in 20 years, the day after the election.
Okay.
So the good news is this. The economy is going to get better because people who invest in the economy are excited.
Okay.
And that's a fact. Now, on top of that, the day after, 2 days after the election, on Thursday, the Fed lowered the Fed fund rate by another 0.25%. Well, what does that do?
Right. What does that mean for us?
It spurs the stock market again because the Fed fund rate is what banks lend intraday to other financial institutions. And to make it really simple, if you have $1 million in the bank, right? And your payroll is $100,000.
Okay.
Often, instead of leveraging your capital, you'd borrow the money intraday to pay your customer or your employee's payroll, and then you'd pay it back the next day, right? Okay. It's cheaper to do that today by 0.25% than it was yesterday.
Okay.
That's really what it means. So
how does that affect me?
Here's how it affects you.
I don't have $1 million in the bank and I don't have a $100,000 payroll.
Here's how it affects you. The cost of producing goods and services got cheaper by 1/4.
Okay.
Right? Because if they
will that trickle down to the consumer?
Well, that's the plan, and that's why they do it, because they want it to lower inflation. That's why they change the Fed fund rate. They go up and down in an effort to lower inflation. That's what they're doing. And they said they lowered it 1/4 because they're almost at their target level of 2% inflation per year. Now, if you get it down to 2%, which is we're right there now, that doesn't erase the 21% higher that it was 4 years ago.
Right.
So more things are going to happen to make the cost of groceries go down. One of the things that will happen, I suspect, based on all of the conversations in the election, is the energy independence stance that the Trump administration had in its first administration, which was undone by executive order immediately after the Biden administration took office, will be re-undone. So it'll go back to the energy independence stance that Trump had.
And what does that mean?
Well, if we're producing and refining our own gas here in America, our own oil and gas, right? It'll be cheaper to sell it, so our prices will go down.
Okay.
The number one thing that caused inflation was the cost of moving goods and services around our country because gas prices skyrocketed.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, the least refined gasoline, diesel, was the most expensive. And the reason it was the most expensive was not because it was the most expensive to refine, because it's the cheapest, because they do the least to it. It's because it's what moves our goods and services.
Okay.
So that is going, if you ask any economist, to go down.
Okay.
When that goes down, everything else will go down too.
Okay.
And that's the exciting part of the economy that we can see now coming our way. And not to leave anybody out of the conversation, the Kamala Harris campaign talked about how they needed to lower the cost of fuel as well.
Well, everybody knew it needed to be done.
Right.
Right? We're
Right.
dying out here.
Right.
You know.
So the good news is we now have a new president-elect who says, drill, drill, drill. The oil underneath Alaska, they're going to find a way to get back into that oil that the Biden administration said no to. The pipeline that was going to come down, I bet it gets restarted. I bet. I don't know for sure, but I bet it does. Fracking, I bet that's going to be just as good as it ever has been. Now, not to be unfair, in the last half of the Biden administration, they picked up oil production because they had to, because
Right.
they dug themselves into an almost get-outable hole. So I'm not saying anything new other than now we have an administration who's coming into office that is all for energy independence, and what that will do is make our lives cheaper. It will. It absolutely will. Will that immediately change interest rates? No. Nope. But when people are excited about the economy, guess what happens?
Well, tell me, and I hope that this is leading into a housing market conversation.
Yes. When people are excited about the economy, they buy houses.
Let's go, baby.
When people are nervous about the economy, they say to their realtors, I want to wait and see what happens with the presidential election, so I'm not going to really do anything right now. But those are not people who have a housing problem. Those are people who have a housing want.
So
There's a difference between a housing problem and a
Yeah.
housing want.
Right.
I want a house with a hot tub. I need a house where I can sleep.
right.
You know what I mean?
Those could be two different things.
Absolutely, they are.
Yeah. So something I found interesting, and I wanted to bring it up on the podcast, and it may be a bit controversial, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Okay.
So the last couple of days, I've seen posts on social media from a few different realtors,
Okay.
some that I know and some that I don't, that are, I think the best way to describe it would be a little fear-mongering. I
just need to know what you're talking about.
So the posts have been like, don't wait to buy because houses are going to get a lot more expensive and you need to buy right now because if you wait till the first of the year, you're going to be paying X percentage more for a house, and all these kind of like historically houses go up X percent after an election. And I was looking at all these and I thought, this can't be accurate information. And I
Right.
don't like the messaging of it. And you can give whatever messaging you want. I don't care. It's just not okay for me. And I did some research and it wasn't actually, some of it wasn't accurate information. But if you do want to know what happens to the housing market traditionally after an election, you can go to our social media, and it's on all of my social media, Londa Sherwood Austin on TikTok. I don't think we put this one on TikTok, but it is on our Facebook page for Sherwood Austin Real Estate Solutions.
Right.
Just about what actually happens. And our source is the National Association of Realtors, if you want to know what our source was. And we just put some information out there that was honest and real and not trying to scare anybody or manipulate anyone, which I felt like some of what I saw was. And so I would just be really, really careful as a consumer if your realtor is telling you, you better hurry up and buy right now, because if you don't, prices are going to go up X percent. If they're quoting an exact percent, that's not real.
Well, no one can know, right?
Right.
And I can tell you, if you look at history, there is interest in the housing.
Fired up, David.
There is interest in the housing market after an election. Yes. How much has it gone up as a result or down? It's really not even perceptible if you look at history.
Right.
It's not. Now, The thing that's different
Let's go.
about
Yeah.
this election is we have radically different mindsets at play here. We were in a time under the Biden administration where we were all about green energy and let's get away from oil and gas.
Okay.
And that made stuff more expensive. You can have practical, environmentally sound practices that don't say, let's let China refine all our gasoline. And if we refine our gasoline, guess what's going to happen? And a scientist told me this, an environmental scientist. We are going to do it cleaner, and the air quality is going to be better if we're doing it here than if they do it there and use mercury in their refining process, because it only takes 14 days for the plume of mercury-poisoned air pollution from China to come here. We are in a one-world solution when it comes to the environment, and they don't have rules, but America does.
Right.
So, of course, we should refine our own gasoline because it not only keeps us cleaner if we stick to the guidelines our country's already put in place,
Right.
but it will also make it cheaper because we won't have to import it from far away.
Speaking of cleaner and cheaper, I actually am really interested to see what happens with our food supply over this next administration.
Oh, because of Make It Healthy Again with Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Yeah. And so I saw some TikToks and some tweets yesterday. Do we still call them tweets, even though it's called X?
I think they are tweets, but it is X.
Yeah,
yes.
I saw some social media posts like, hey, Kellogg's, you doing okay today? Because it's no secret that you take a box of Fruit Loops from the United States and a box of Fruit Loops from Europe, and the ingredient list is very different.
Right.
Yes. And we do put a lot of chemicals in our food, and I've been talking about this for years and years, not publicly really, but yeah, I'm a big fan of clean food, and I eat pretty clean, and it'll just be interesting to see. I'm interested to see what happens.
Yeah,
I don't have a dog in the fight except me, and I want to be healthier.
I can tell you, whenever the government tells people how they have to eat, it does not have good consequences. If you look at former New York Mayor Mike Bloomberg, when he outlawed big gulps in New York City, huge backlash.
Yeah.
Government shouldn't be so big. It tells you what you can do in your home. That's just my opinion. But again, I don't really have a political party because nobody represents my personal beliefs. You know what I mean?
Right.
And here's my personal belief. We should all be nice to one another. And if we're kind to one another, because it's always appropriate to be kind, like kind coffee on the coffee cup you're holding up.
From Colorado.
Yes. If we're all kind to one another, life is easier. It's way harder to be grudgy and hold a grudge and be angry.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Kindness doesn't get the freaking chemicals out of our food.
Kindness doesn't get the chemicals out of our food, but you don't want chemicals in your food, so you buy clean choices. You make clean choices.
As much as
I don't know if the government should have a hand in that. However, if we are going to have a thing called the Food and Drug Administration, let's make things that are illegal elsewhere, because other countries call them poison, illegal here too. And I guess that's what
I'm talking about. Like, it'll be really,
that's what they're going to try to do.
It'll be really interesting to see what unfolds over these next 4 years and a couple months.
Right.
Yeah.
It'll
just be interesting. I just want, I want the market to be, I want the economy to be healthy. I think everybody does.
Sure.
But the reality is I'm going to work to make my personal economy healthy.
Right.
If that makes sense. Yeah. Right. And so, people were kind of freaking out the day after the election. I made a post on my socials that was like, hey, I took a picture of the sunrise. I said, hey, this is just a reminder the sun did come up today.
Right.
And you make your life what it what it is. And that's just, at the end of the day, I think something that we all have to remember. I make my life what it is.
Right.
I get to decide what I do with the 24 hours that I have. I get to decide what I put into my body. I get to decide who I put into my body. I get to decide, how I spend my time. I get to decide the time that I allocate to my friends and my family and my work and my, we really do have a lot of choices, right? And
yes.
so utilize those choices the best you can and make your life the beautiful thing that you want it to be.
I like that. Here's what I can say about the market and why now's a great time to buy.
Okay.
It's a great time to buy a house now if you have a housing need.
Sure.
Because house prices have not exploded upwards since the election results. They have not gone crazy. But here's what's going to happen in my estimation.
Lean in, people, and listen up.
If we look at history, regardless of who's president, houses appreciate, not depreciate. If we realize that we're in a recession and that's announced, house prices appreciate. They don't historically depreciate.
Right.
Interest rates, though, during a recession drop. So I don't know what the actual economic forecast will be. I heard one person say, they're setting Trump up for a huge recession, unlike we've never seen before.
Okay.
What I do think is 2 years ago, our economy would be in better shape if they'd have announced when there were two drops in our gross domestic product in a row that we were in a recession. There would have been layoffs, which is never good politically, but it's good to help rebalance the economy. Nobody mentioned when the tech sector laid off thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of people.
It was like 30,000 people.
No
or
one
something.
even mentioned it. No one even mentioned it because it wouldn't have been politically popular to mention it. But you know what? If they had mentioned it, we'd be in a little bit farther ahead stance with lower prices already had that happened.
Right.
So I wouldn't be surprised if that kind of announcement is made and we do go into a little bit of a recession and it's known that we're in it, because some people will lose their jobs because the job market's super tight right now. Right? If it loosens up a little bit, there will be more opportunity later than there is today because all the jobs are full now. So if that happens, we'll see prices go down. We'll see opportunity go up, but we'll have some discomfort for a little while in the job market. Good news. Everything will be less expensive then.
Yeah. I want to talk to people for just a second. Having come from a very frugal background.
Yeah.
Right. And I just want to encourage you, because we're going into the holiday season and that feels like a lot of pressure for a lot of people. And we're not going to see the economy be our friend quite yet before the end of the year. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like goods and services aren't going to get any cheaper.
But consumer confidence is going to go up as a result. I know it is.
Okay, but here's what I want to say. No, you don't need all the stuff. You don't need new Christmas decor or whatever. You don't need all the things that you think you need. Here, take it from somebody whose children are all grown up and have children of their own. Your children will remember experiences and time with you and that kind of thing far more than they will ever remember. We went to the pumpkin patch, or we went and, to a Christmas tree farm and did all this stuff, right? Because those all cost money.
Sure.
Or I got this XYZ gift for Christmas. Being on this side of it, looking backward, I can promise you they remember the experiences. Almost every single one of my kids, when I ask them, what are some of the Christmas traditions that you remember, or things that you remember about Christmas, your favorite gift or your favorite time or your favorite this or that, almost every one of them says, and now does with their children, this one tradition. And it's this. Every Christmas Eve, my kids got in their pajamas. I would make a thermos of hot cocoa, take cups and we would pile in the car, my big 15-passenger van, and they would have their blankets and their hot cocoa, and we would drive around and look at Christmas lights.
Yeah.
It cost next to nothing. And I killed myself to create all kinds of special traditions and memories and this and that and the other thing and try to make sure their gift was just what they wanted it to be. Fast forward all these years, and that's the thing that every one of them remembers as like one of their it's the standout as their favorite thing they ever did. And now they do it with their kids.
I love that.
It doesn't cost much at all. So I just want to encourage you that if you're tightening the belt a little bit this holiday season, just spend time with people, love people, encourage people. Make some new traditions this year that don't have to do with extravagance. And, you might see some really good outcome from that.
Sure. And if you want to make all the right moves, reach out to Sherwood Austin Real Estate Solutions, a proud sponsor of The Session with Londa and David. And I got to tell you, those are some crackerjack people at that installation.
They're pretty incredible.
Sherwood Austin Real Estate Solutions is run by the hottest lady I know. I mean, wow. And their lending arm, really, really good.
Go check out SherwoodAustin.com. We're making changes and updates to the website every day. Our latest change that I really like is we've included a page of what does a real estate agent do anyway?
What does a real estate agent do? I think they drink a lot.
If you'd like to know some of what we actually do, you can go to SherwoodAustin.com, and we have a page there that kind of explains a little bit of it.
For Londa, Joanne, Sherwood, Austin, I'm David Austin, and this has been The Session with Londa and David.